So if you've ever made an impulsive decision and thought, ugh, why did I do that? This week is for you. Welcome. We are in June, right here amongst summer, and we've got such a great week for you. So we are in our last month of Inner CEO and kind of learning how to master the inner game. And this week, we're going to do decision making. It's going to be a great way to learn how stress and that silly primitive brain is showing up so much more readily than it's meant to be. And how do we really make decisions in these reactionary modes that seem to get us so much in the shame and guilt, this judgment of what we do. This week is going to be amazing, so stay tuned. We've got so much good work. Cultivating mental blooms, we're going to get into the target of our mind, how we can heal in our past, in our present, and we're going to look at finances and the neurohumanity model at the end of the week. We've got a lot of great ways in which everyday decisions are keeping you held back. And how do we break through that so that we make the responses with integrity, even under activation? Week 1 is all about awareness before action. We're starting with the inner CEO, the part of us that leads, evaluates, and decides. This is frontal lobe executive functioning. And this week, we look at how decision-making works as a cognitive process through information, emotion, risk, and perspective. We are also examining what happens under stress because stress shrinks perspective and often pushes us into reaction instead of intentional action. Reaction is fast, biased, and avoidant. Action is grounded, clear, and aligned. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. It is to regulate emotion so we can choose with clarity. That is the work of the inner CEO, not reacting to pressure, but evaluating, aligning, and deciding. When we ask better questions, we create better outcomes. Awareness builds data, data builds clarity, and clarity builds leadership. This week, we are going from reaction to regulation. We're going to pull from my key steps to live a happier and healthier life, part 1, a life worth living, which pulls in these dialectical behavioral therapy concepts, cognitive behavioral therapy, and my neuroscience-backed framework to really understand why we get into the decisions we have and why we don't have six-pack abs and millions of dollars. It's because we're not regulating our emotions. And so I started with part 1 with the executive function and decision making because it was a better buy. Technically, we have to do emotional regulation first, and we've learned all of that. And in our inner CEO class, we're definitely getting into that and really taking in the inner grounding piece so that we can emotionally regulate. But this week we are going to dive in and just go through the books just like that because it makes a difference. It doesn't matter where you're at. It matters that you're present and let life present. And so understanding why we make the decisions we do is a key step in understanding and being able to grow, letting go of that shame and guilt, owning our awareness, and choosing what we want to do with it. And so we're going to get all of that right now. So when we're owning our decisions, we're owning our outcome. And no, I didn't find a way that we can control outcomes. Man, would that be amazing. But I did understand that we are in control of the processes. And when we have intention, we set purpose, which is, again, knowing that there's no outcome, but orientation. We're dedicated through this idea of not being intense or having intensity, but having return, coming back to those processes that really reflect our value. And then we throw in the accountability, this idea of clarity. And so when we have all of those kind of spinning together and we're putting those intentional processes out there, what we find is those decisions will turn into an outcome. We just don't know which one it is, but we can own what our value is and what we want, and it will come back to us more readily. And this is where awareness before action comes in this week. Awareness before action when it comes to decision making is really understanding, and in this place in the inner garden, you're actually tending your garden. So we're not necessarily getting a lot of going underneath the soil, but there's a lot of stressors and infestations, weather, seasons, stressors that are above the soil. And so we are dealing with those. We are present. We're letting life kind of hopefully present. There's still stressors there. There's no utopia on earth. So we are tending the garden this week. And as we tend the garden this week, we understand that at any point in time, we could get into a foxhole. We could get into the quicksand of our mind. And so we're just being present and realizing that decision making is a cognitive process. That when we can be aware of zoom out, zoom in, find a focal point, when you can understand that there are multiple options and that it is a trigger to say a limited time only, exclusive content, spoiler alert, it is trying to say that there's a limiting factor. And as those limiting factors come in, it starts to mess with, oh, I better do it now. And we get into that free state. Now we're beneath the soil, our performance is coming in, and that's when we make these emotional decisions. So when we're emotionally aware, when we've done the risk assessment and we understand kind of the big picture that's happening, zooming out, and we've gathered all the information required, then we can make the most effective decision for ourselves. And one of the key concepts of why we don't have six-pack abs and $1 million bank accounts is something that I keep coming back to. And that is stress is going to shrink the perspective. It's going to narrow your focus. And remember that the body is going to make decisions well before the mind can keep up and become aware. And when this happens, it's going into survival reactions. And then we're having reactions to our reactions. And spoiler alert, because of all these implicit messages that we are now relying on, what we're doing is we're pulling on what those reactions are, and it's not good. We're judging ourselves. We're listening to other people judge themselves, then we take it for ourselves as we take on that judgment. And a lot of us fear emotion. And so not only are we in that reactionary emotional state, that's how we trigger the negative dynamics, how we get below the soil. But we're also having an emotional reaction to the emotional reaction. And we're like, ooh, we don't want to go in that place. That place is scary. Like, we can't trust that. And in my second chapter, technically chapter 3, because mindfulness is the foundation to wellness, we look at emotional regulation, and there are 7 invalidating environments. And we are all in at least 5, mostly 6 or 7. Invalidating emotional environments, this idea of being in performance driven, having this unstable, like emotions are not safe because it's not consistent, being overprotected and put in a bubble, like, ooh, that downplaying it, like it's not that big a deal. Why do you have to be so much? All of these things are going to come up at some point in time. And when they come up, you're going to have a very predictable reaction that will come up. You will have a narrative that gets connected to it, and then reactions that will happen as you naturally shut down or over engage and you get on that emotional spectrum. And so in our Key Steps book, we actually share with you how to ground in the moment, how to heal overall. And that really gives you key steps, imagine that, on how to be aware, finding the acceptance, because you see that behavior is predictable, and then you have a specific thing that you can apply that gives you that agency, reclaims your value. And we remember motivation, value, and capacity are all connected. So now your motivation's going to go up. So now you're going to want to make better decisions that serve you. But when we avoid value, capacity, and motivation go down, we don't have the motivation to do the decisions that actually push us forward. And so this is a key positive flow state experience. As you are making the decisions, your value and capacity is going up, you're wanting to do more decisions. That is the positive flow state. And that is owning your inner CEO. And finally, we're going to think like a CEO, and we're going to think like a leader. And how you really maximize on your CEO and your inner CEO decision making is you have to ask the right questions. And so a part of that is learning the ways to have critical decision making, to not take the world for what it says, because it's all about influencers, and even the news is a billion-dollar business. There's not a lot out there that you can say, yes, I'm going to take you for face value. You need to take you look in the mirror for face value. And when you take yourself for face value, remember that trust is a feedback loop. And when you lean in on the things that you value and you find that for yourself and you plant the garden for yourself, not tending the garden that was planted for you, which is what we're all doing on this hamster wheel of life, what you find is you can start to get curious and you can start to ask questions that really help you to feel connected to things and not feel the pressure of what other people want you to feel. And a lot of propaganda out there. I don't say that I am one side or the other. I live literally on a mountain very remotely for a reason, because it doesn't serve me. And I couldn't be good at what I do if I got involved in all the stress of the world. So I take deep breaths. I live a true life of my own choosing. Went through a lot of stress to get here. It didn't happen easily, but I'm giving you and bestowing on you the lessons learned in my life to get here. And what I find is that there is a common theme. It doesn't matter what aisle you are on, there's a common theme. There's a lot of shame and guilt. There's a lot of labeling so that you can distance and dismiss anything that is said by something that is an opposing view. And there is a lot of derogatory comments and assumptions that are made to, again, create a hierarchy. A hierarchy is no bueno. It does nothing for you. It causes stress. So that you can be right, which automatically makes somebody else wrong. That's bedrock thinking. That idea that as long as I am here, then someone is here. It's bedrock thinking. It's pulling you into your past. They're literally manipulating you, trying to get you to take on emotional decision making so that you are not clear, you are not listening to the facts, so that you are not gathering information and you're not asking questions. So if you're wanting some inner CEO insight, go to the worksheet. We give awareness for free, lots of opportunities to understand why we do the things we do. And then if you want to get behind the paywall, it's really not that expensive. If you want to get behind the paywall, then what you do is you get acceptance and action. You learn through the rooted model how to look at things in a different manner. How do you calm your body? How do you get objective and start asking, and what questions do you want to ask? You start to learn how to look at world through your lens and not the lenses that have been given to you. And if this is something that you want, again, we have neurohumanity.com to learn about our framework. We have couples masterclasses because it's all connected. Your work, yourself, your relationship are all connected. Change one, change them all. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters that you start, and we are here for you on that journey. Whether you want to learn and master the inner game, or try one of our coaching services, our books, and just understand what Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions can offer you, everything is there. It's available to you. My goal is, this is my mission in life. It is my passion. I want to meet you where you are in your change journey. And that's why we have this breadth of service, so that whether you're just curious and want some information, or you're ready to hit play, and everything in between, there's something for you, and there's something that is no cost for you to get started. So this is your chance. I'm so glad that you press played, you watched the video. Now go and just do one thing. It's not about doing everything. It is about doing one thing a day. And today you press play. Tomorrow maybe you'll learn a little bit about cultivating mental blooms. Emma's going to have an incredible activity where she's going to synthesize all of our information in a 5 to 6 minute activity. It's wonderful. I love it so much. On Thursday, we're actually going to get into financial wellness. So another chapter from our part 1 series is about financial wellness. And so we're going to learn what that is and how to make those decisions. Spoiler alert, every decision you make, I don't care if you're a saver or a spender, you're anxious. We're going to learn how to invest in ourselves and reflect our value. And then Friday is 5 for Friday. We're going to look at these anxious thoughts that are behind our most basic reactions. I'm Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Thank you so much.